found on Mr. O'Keefe's forearm.
Did this test, in your opinion, establish force multipliers that were exerted on the taillight?
It has nothing to do with force. It doesn't describe the force exerted on the taillight or on the arm. It doesn't describe how the arm would have moved as it hit the taillight. It doesn't describe how the taillight would fracture. It doesn't describe how you would actually get the lacerations on the arm. Again, all this does is generally, and I made an error there. This report, and you can see the slide says laceration. Mr. O'Keefe did not have lacerations on his arm.
What did he have?
He was diagnosed with superficial abrasions.
Is there a difference between a laceration and an abrasion?
There's a distinct difference, both biomechanically and medically, yes.
Is that an important distinction?
That is.
Why?
The first step of the biomechanical analysis is identify the injuries, and you have to take the diagnosed injuries identified by a medical doctor. So it's superficial abrasions. To put lacerations on, that's simply incorrect.
So I strike the end of that.
Would you describe the injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's arm as lacerations?
No.
Would they be more properly described in another way?
It would be, yes.
What's that other way?
So they've been diagnosed as superficial abrasions. An abrasion occurs when there's rubbing or scraping of the skin, and it just rubs away the top layer, the epidermis of the skin. Now, a laceration is a jagged ripping or tearing of the skin, which gets down through the epidermis into the dermis. So abrasions take much less force, they're less severe than what a laceration actually is.
In a biomechanical analysis, if it's done properly, is it important to get the proper injury to the body as a foundation to the entire analysis?
That's core to the analysis, because you're trying to determine how an injury occurred. You have to know what that injury is. You have to have the correct injury to be able to evaluate it.
Let's go to the next slide. Bless you. This is a placeholder. I want to ask you a little bit while this is up. We can turn the lights up. First step in the analysis. What is the first step in the analysis after you determine the injuries, the type of injuries?
So in this step, after you determine the injury, what we want to do is we want to look at the physical evidence. So we have the abrasions on Mr. O'Keefe's arm, and we have the sweatshirt that he was wearing at the time. So the first step in any investigation is to determine, does the evidence from the arm match up to the evidence on the sweatshirt?
Did you undertake that analysis?
I did, yes.
Is that indicated in a slide a little bit later on in your PowerPoint?
It is, yes, sir.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide, please. What are we looking at in this slide?
So this explains the injuries, and this is from on the left side, that is the diagnoses from the autopsy. The right side is from the hospital. And you can see it says blunt impact injuries of head and extremities, abrasions and lacerations. The laceration is on the back of the skull, on the back of the head where the occipital skull fracture is. When you look at the extremities, everywhere where it talks about the extremities, it's superficial abrasions. So the first step in a biomechanical analysis, you review the medical records, determine exactly what the injuries are. And you can see there's a picture of the actual abrasions. Those are the documented injuries or abrasions to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm.
Are these acceptable sources? Well, let me ask you this. What are the sources that are reflected on this slide that you referred to or you relied on in coming to your opinions and conclusions regarding Mr. O'Keefe's injuries to his right arm?
Again, on the left side is from the autopsy report from the medical examiner, and then the right side is actually from the Good Samaritan hospital where Mr. O'Keefe was taken. Are
autopsy records, hospital records, medical records acceptable sources for a biomechanist to rely on in determining or coming to opinions and conclusions?
They are. They are the sources you go to determine what the injuries are, yes.
Did you see... you reviewed the entirety of the medical records as well as the entirety of the medical examiner's file, is that right?
I did, yes, sir.
Did you see reference to any fractures that were noted on Mr. O'Keefe's right arm, either his arm, his forearm, or his hand?
No, there were no diagnosed or references to fractures on any part of his right arm or hand.
I'm going to ask Mr. Wolk to display a couple of exhibits, the x-rays.
Okay?
So he's going to take over the TV screen.
Sure.
If that's okay, Your Honor?
Yes.
This is an exhibit that was marked yesterday. I want to say 226. I may be wrong, Your Honor. I'll get the right nomenclature in just a second. This is one of the exhibits, one of 3 exhibits that was introduced yesterday. Do you recognize what's depicted on this?
That's the X-ray of Mr. O'Keefe's right hand taken January 31st, I believe.
Did you review this in furtherance of your analysis?
I did, yes, sir.
Was it part of the medical record, medical records or AE's records?
It was a series of the X-rays, yes, was attached. It was part of the medical records that were provided to me and that I reviewed in this matter.
Thank you. Just for the record, so I can clarify, this is Exhibit 229A, as in apple. Do you see, have you looked at X-rays before?
I have, yes.
Have you interpreted X-rays in furtherance of your analyses in years past?
I have during my biomechanical analysis, yes.
Are you trained to look at X-rays and determine whether there are fractures, hairline fractures, broken bones, things of that nature?
I've been doing this for 20 years. In graduate school, I worked with surgeons and doctors to look at X-rays.
Is that part of the normal methodology that biomechanists undertake in furtherance of injury analysis?
It is part of what we normally do, yes, sir.
Would it be an important part of a biomechanist's ultimate analysis and conclusions as it relates to an injury analysis?
It would be, and especially in this case, if we're talking about impact to the arm and the hand, very important to determine, as I said, not only what the actual injuries are, but what injuries did not occur.
Would it be appropriate to come to any opinions and conclusions in an injury analysis if you were to ignore X-rays, if they existed?
No. If X-rays exist, you need to review them. You need to determine what they represent and what injuries either did or didn't occur. You absolutely need to look at them.
Do you see any injuries represented or any defects represented in this X-ray of Mr. O'Keefe's right hand?
I do not, no, sir.
Can you describe what you do see or what you would expect to see if there were injuries, broken bones, torn ligaments, things of that nature, swelling? What would you expect to see?
You could actually see the fracture lines on the bones. They are evident along the hands or along the ulna and the radius. Any dislocations you see, there would be a difference in the space at the joints between the bones. Dislocation, then there would be an increased space or even a decreased space if there's compression of the joints, the interphalangeal joints, the metacarpophalangeal joints, the wrist joint. There's no indication on these X-rays of any fractures or any trauma or any type of injury to the bones or the joints.
Can we go to 229B as in Bravo with the court's permission?
Yes.
Do you see what's depicted in this photograph?
I can, yes, sir.
What is this?
So this is a X-ray. The forearm shows the ulna and the radius, which are the 2 bones in the forearm.
Do you see any defects, injury, trauma to these bones or anything associated with those bones?
I do not. And when you're viewing this on the software to look at the X-rays, you can actually adjust the contrast. So you can adjust the brightness and the darkness, and it allows you to go through the whole range to better evaluate whether there are any fractures. This is a little bright, so when you're looking at this, you would actually decrease the contrast a little bit.
In terms of your review of this particular photograph, what did you note in terms of trauma or injuries at all?
I did not note any indication or any signs of trauma or injury to the forearm or to the wrist in this case.
If we could go to 229C as in Charlie. What are we looking at in this photograph?
This is the right humerus, the right upper bone of Mr. O'Keefe's right arm.
Do you notice, or did you note, did you review this in furtherance of your analysis?
I did, yes, sir.
Did you note any defects, trauma, injuries at all with regard to the, I'm sorry, the bone is the
humerus.
humerus?
I did not, no, sir.
What about the joints associated with the humerus, top or bottom?
I did not note any injuries or damage to either the elbow or the shoulder joint either.
What is your opinion and conclusion, having reviewed all three of these x-rays, with regard to the condition of Mr. O'Keefe's right arm, starting from the arm, the forearm, and the bones in the hand?
There's no indication of any type of acute injury from the x-ray to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm, either his hand, his forearm, or his upper arm.
Thank you. We can switch that back. And if we can go back to your PowerPoint. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Maybe. Let me see if I can start back in on it here. Okay, there we go.
What are we looking at in this slide?
So again, this is the hoodie or sweatshirt that Mr. O'Keefe had on at the time of this alleged incident.
Did you consider these photographs in conducting your injury causation analysis?
I did, yes, sir.
What role did these photographs of Mr. O'Keefe's hoodie play in your injury causation analysis?
So this shows the hoodie, and it was inspected by the police department, and it was noted, as you can see on the right sleeve by the triangles, there were 9 different punctures or holes noted in the sleeve of the sweatshirt.
Can we go to the next slide, please? What are we looking at in these series of photos?
So let's come to sidebar for a minute and Mr. Jackson, bring your PowerPoint, please.